when you're a victim of crime, you get paperwork, which will be like your case number. Also, you get a little card that says what your rights are under Marcy's law. The one thing to remember is that if you want updates about the case, if you want information and to be kept in the loop of what's happening, you have to ask for it. If you don't tell the DA's office that you want to be updated about your case, they won't tell you what's going on generally, and they may settle the case without ever telling you what happened. So if you want to know about what's going on in your case, if you're worried about it, you can ask to be updated about future court appearances, any disposition. If you want to give a victim impact statement and let the court know about the case, you can do that. There's also an organization called Stop Crime SF, which has a court watch program, and that was invaluable in my cases. Cases like auto-burgs or things that people wouldn't normally see as being that important. If it was a serial auto burglar, having court watch personnel from Stop Crime SF come and watch the proceedings, even if the judges just knew, and I would introduce them. I would say, Your Honor, there's people here from Stop Crime SF, they're here to watch. The judge knows exactly what's happening, which is that somebody's watching what's going to happen. And if they make a decision that they don't like, it's not going to end there necessarily, that people are watching what's happening. It also is, and I had this in my cases, where the victims knowing that, I would introduce them to the victims and say, hey, these are volunteers from the community. I know that Stop Crime SF is currently interviewing both Mandarin and Cantonese speakers for their, Mandarin and Cantonese coordinator for the Court Watch program to get Cantonese and Mandarin speaking volunteers to go to the court appearances of API victims of crime. So you won't just be there with an advocate from victim services, you'll also be there with people in the community that are volunteering to come to court to support you. So that's another resource that's available to people.
Great. I'd like to take this time now to take some questions from the audience.
While that's happening, real quick, every time you're a victim of crime in San Francisco, you get the Marcy's card. You also, if it's a violent crime, you get a victim of violent crime notification. So that's all given to the victim. The only thing is you have to report it, and you get those numbers.
Can I just one other thing? I think it's also important is we get this question a lot, which is if people are afraid of the victim. The victim is afraid of the perpetrator, and they're worried about retaliation. And I had this happen in multiple cases where the victim wouldn't cooperate because they were worried about retaliation. But if they cooperate, we can ask for what's called a criminal protective order. We can ask for things like putting the defendant on a GPS device. And so let's say that it's a commercial burglary and the defendant has threatened the business owner. We can ask for things like a protective order saying that person can't come within 150 yards of the business. We can ask for a GPS that will go off and send off an alarm if they get within 150 yards of the business. There's also a service called BindLink, which you can sign up for. You put in the defendant's name, and if the person's released from custody, you get a text or email notification. So while they're in custody, you have the peace of mind of knowing that they're not out on the street, and as soon as they get released, you can be notified. So those services, if you're cooperating with the system and you're telling your advocate that you want to exercise your Marcy's Law rights, all of those things can be available to you.